if you both share like the willingness or the interest in checking out new music, or you're cool to stay through like the final encore of your partner's favorite band, even if you don't like them, just because you like music is so important to you that you get it. So that's sort of the next layer that we get to, so that it's not just about like your music preferences. It's also about just the way that you view music generally.
Hey, you guys, welcome back to another episode of the Ask Women podcast. I'm your host, Kristen Carney, not with Marnie Kinrys today, unfortunately, but you can find her, of course, at wingirlmethod.com. And today we have a really cool topic that we've never ever talked about in the many years that we've done this podcast. And it's music compatibility and how people connect through music. So we have a wonderful guest, Rachel Van Nortwick, who's going to be chatting with us about it. She is the founder and CEO of the dating app called Vinally, which is the best name ever. So Vinyl and finally, perfect. You guys found each other over music. It's amazing. So we're going to get into all of that and more. So Rachel, thank you so much for hanging with me and just me today.
Thank you for having me.
So this is such an interesting angle that seems in a weird way obvious, but also not. This hasn't really popped up too much in our conversations whatsoever, through the course of doing this show. But music is such a connective thing. Like how did you use it? Music compatibility, right? And
Right.
so tell me a little bit about how you came upon this idea, and let's just go from there.
Sure. So I'm a lifelong music fan. I started collecting vinyl records when I was 6. I've been to over 600 shows. And at one point, I was married to somebody who was like a less enthusiastic plus one whenever we went to go see live music. And, that put a strain on our relationship. And so I decided to create an app that's based entirely on music compatibility because, like you mentioned, it is such a connective tissue for people, especially younger people today. It's how they express themselves. So yes, this app didn't exist, and so I saw the opportunity to create it.
How long ago did it start?
So we launched October 2019, like right before the pandemic,
Oh, wow.
which turned out to be sort of a blessing in disguise. Initially I was concerned about it because one of the hooks of the app is that you can search, suggest, and buy concert tickets, and then concerts went away. But people were forced to meet people on dating apps or online because like you couldn't go out. So we benefited from that, and kind of took off from there.
Yeah. And you know what's actually funny? I didn't say this before we started taping, but this morning I was working with a client. And again, this really doesn't come up often. And this client, I've worked with him for a while, and he was chatting with a woman on an app, and she mentioned the music that she was into because he referenced this big experience he had at a Bruce Springsteen concert.
Mm.
And when she mentioned the music that she was into, he didn't know anything about it and didn't respond because he thought, well, he was more self-conscious. He thought, well, I don't
Mm.
know that music. It must be cool, or I'm not in the know enough to know
Right.
whatever it was. And so we were talking this morning at great length about connecting over music, but
Hmm.
also, maybe giving someone a chance or opening yourself up to new music, because if he had
Hmm.
never heard that before, he might actually really like it. Um, so, so how with this app, I think it's just like it's such a good idea. How do people organize themselves on
Hmm.
the app so that they're finding the people that they would connect with most through music?
Yeah. So on our app, you can either sync your Spotify, or you can use our profile generator. So people who only collect vinyl or use Apple Music, either way, you can set up a profile like super quick. And then we just ask you a few questions about the role music plays in your life and then combine those. Our algorithm then produces matches. We don't have swiping in our app intentionally. So everything is like, pushing play or fast forward, rewind, all of those, types of things. And then from there, you can use our music conversation starters, start chatting, and then as mentioned, like search suggest and buy concert tickets. So you can do all of that without leaving the app. And just to what you brought up earlier, probably like the number one thing we get asked is, how is someone going to match with me? My music is like so all over the place, and I think that's a lot of us today. So, I mean, I would guess that, the example you brought up, like he may not know those bands, but he probably has heard them and maybe didn't know. Slash, like there's so many shared influences between music that there's a good chance that they actually did have, some overlap there. And that's how we match as well. So we don't match, like one to one. You don't have to like the exact same genres, the exact same bands, songs, etc. We like look a little bit deeper because that's really more what music compatibility is about.
Okay, so tell me about what that means with going a little bit deeper. What's underneath the first layer of this is the band I like? Then what's next?
Yeah, so I mean, within genres, there's subgenres. There are, genres that are influenced by others. There are there's other data that we get just around, the percentage you listen to something over something else. And so I think, all of that data plus like the questions you answer give a more well-rounded picture of who you are. And I think, another piece of it, which like tends to come out through our chats, is that, you don't necessarily even have to match up to, somebody else at a high rate if you both share like the willingness or the interest in checking out new music, or you're cool to stay through like the final encore of your partner's favorite band, even if you don't like them, just because you like music is so important to you that you get it. So that's sort of the next layer that we get to, so that it's not just about like your preference, your music preferences. It's also about just the way that you view music generally.
Yeah. And so do you think that someone's taste in music says a lot about themselves? And I'm going to throw this in there. I'm a huge comedy. I do stand-up comedy, but I'm a huge comedy fan. And for the longest time, I was like, I grew up on Seinfeld, and like Larry David is a hero of mine. And I thought, why isn't there a dating app for music, for taste in comedy? And so because it really says a lot about you and your taste in comedy and
Mm-hmm.
your values and your point of view on the world and your personality type. And so I set out to make a dating app um, based on Larry David or something like that. I can't remember what the
Yeah.
name was, but um, the logo was great because Larry says pretty, pretty, pretty good. And so my tagline was a pretty, pretty, pretty good place to meet. And then I just
Mm-hmm.
stopped there. I was like, okay, I don't know how to do the building of this and everything. But I thought, and it says so much about you. And so
Yeah.
I'm assuming the same with music. So what does a certain genre say about, let's say, a guy who um listens to XYZ? Would Where I'm trying to go with this question is, and hopefully Julian, our editor, can make this sound coherent, but
Mm-hmm.
what is underneath, let's say, somebody who listens to a lot of rock and roll? What does that say about them, and how can the man use that in a way to connect deeper and more emotionally with a woman?
Yeah, so no, I am totally tracking what you're saying. So there's a lot of research around music and music preferences and music's effect on the brain and music's effect on relationships. So, around like specific genres and what it says about you. Again, we do today like tend to be a little bit more broad in our genres, but certain genres do, like generally speaking, have data that might say, like, if you like rock music, you are, maybe a bit more, outgoing, right? If you like R&B, you might prefer, like more quiet during the day, things like that. And these are not literal, but there is data around that over a large population tends to be kind of true. However, I think that really it's just more about like why, like why are you so into music? Was it was rock like part of your formative years, which is like actually the case. So like we're most tied to the music that we grew up listening to, like between the ages of like 13 and 19. You attach to that, and then that sort of becomes like your go-to for the rest of your life. However, a lot of people pull in additional music and stuff, but so it's really interesting. Like it might say about you, it might just speak to the generation that you were from, the type of music or the type of bands that you're listening to. It might speak to like what you're going through in your life. It might speak to like the friends you have and those influences. So I think there's a few different things that go into like why you listen to what you listen to, but there are definitely studies around like if you primarily listen to this, you're probably like this personality type.
Right. I remember in high school being so defined by music, and I thought I was a hippie. Like I love the Doors, and
Yes.
I wore bell bottoms, and this is in like the late 90s, early 2000s, but I was like, this is who I am. And then I morphed, but I'm like not a hippie. I mean, I'm a nice
Right.
person, but I'm not a hippie. But there's still that connection that I have to that genre. So it's like physically I might not look like somebody who would be into XYZ music, but am. And so that seems like a really cool, almost like backdoor entrance into connecting with somebody you wouldn't have maybe thought you would have connected with, if that
A hundred
makes.
percent.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, sometimes for some people, right? Like, music is maybe not their identity. It might just be like their lifestyle, like an interest, or maybe they have one band that they really love and they just are looking for somebody, that they can count on to enjoy that music, go to concerts, etc. So there is a range, of the way that like music shapes you and what matters to you about music. But the cool thing about Vinily and matching over music is that it actually is backed by science. So the idea of connecting over music, it isn't just, oh, it's a commonality. Actually, shared music with someone else increases our dopamine levels, it lowers our stress hormone, cortisol, and it also strengthens communication in relationships. So music's super powerful. And if you think about it, when you see people like in a concert environment or singing to a song they like that's just like pure joy. And that person is like the best version of themselves at that moment. So,
Yeah.
we can definitely like see, like it's palpable how that is, a fact.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I didn't think about that. So your energy or your frequency or whatnot, generally
Mm-hmm.
when you're listening to music is higher. So you're pulling out this side of you that may not be pulled out without it, and presenting that person. And that's something beautiful. It seems like there's just a callback in this to being able to ice break right from the beginning with
Mm-hmm.
anecdotes of happy times or your childhood, or you know um, share memories that maybe you both went to the same concert at the same time. It seems just like a
Mm-hmm.
great icebreaker, like an incredible way to start convo. But you said there's icebreakers in the app.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
what
As
are some of
well.
those?
Yeah. So I mean, I think that it's a great way to say like, tell me who you are without telling me who you are. Like if you start talking about the music that you listen to, or times in your life where, like music got you through a hard time, like says so much more about you than like, we don't have bios on that for that reason. Like a bio, you can just write what.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
yes.
that's
So
cool.
yeah, that was intentional. I mean, it's really all about your music DNA. So it's not, you don't actually have to do the work to try to create this person. Like it's just you, your authentic self through music. In terms of conversation starters, we update them all the time, but we make them like specific to things in your profile and things specific into the person's profile that you're talking to. So, like, it'll pull in, oh, I see that you love David Bowie. Like, tell me about that. Or like, oh my gosh, like I also like, acoustic, rock or whatever it is. Like, so we try to make it so it's relevant. You don't have to like do the homework, but then you have a natural like starting off point to have a conversation.
Yeah, yeah. So, did you have a background in dating before starting this app, or was this inspired purely by your personal experience with your with your relationship?
Yeah, so no prior dating app development experience. It was just really based on, yes, like the importance of music to me in relationships. So not just romantic relationships, but like platonic relationships. Like definitely the best friends I've had in my life. We enjoy, music together. But and the fact that at that time too, like traditional dating apps were already starting to get like, people were getting fatigued with them. So it was just like the
Hmm.
intersection of those two things. But like my professional background, I've been a marketer for like 20 something years, and, have worked in the tech space and consumer marketing. So it was something where I could envision what I wanted the product to look like. And then I had to learn a lot around technical development, and a lot of it too is just finding the right people, to join the team and help you execute your vision. So it's been a good, learning opportunity for me as well.
Have you gotten a chance to talk to users directly and hear their experiences? I'm sure you obviously have as the CEO and founder. I'm curious what people's responses have been and what they've said and what their feedback is with their
Yes.
experience.
So, I mean, listen, it's the good and the bad, right? Like there's,
Mhm.
when you create whatever product it is, people are going to use it and have, a point of view. And so, I'll give you a bad example. I'm happy to share. It's like when we first launched on Android, not to get too technical, but basically there's hundreds of Android phones. It's not like Apple where there's, you just have the iPhone, right? So the way apps work, they just render differently. And so then that produces just, you know, uh, difficulties sometimes for users. And it's just something you learn over time. And we got beat up initially. And so that was, listen, it was good feedback though. Like feedback truly is a gift. And so it's helped us to improve the app overall. I mean, luckily this was like several years, in the rear view now. But I think on the positive, people who are experiencing the app and have, you know, had matches and been able to have great conversations and go out on dates and all of that. The overall feedback is just that it's a like refreshing, different experience. So it's right off the bat, that the people that are on the app, whether or not they like the same music as you do, they like love music, they get music, they get the importance of music, and then you really can't spin who you are too much. I mean, it would take great lengths for you to try to like manipulate, the music that you're listening to, and create a profile that wasn't you. So I think it's just there's like a little bit better authenticity
Mhm.
right off the bat, and so I think it's like and I always say that to people, like you don't have to like get off other dating apps, right? Like you can just add Vinally into the mix and see if it makes sense for you. But I think it's just a very different positive experience.
Yeah, I think it's such a good idea. And I'm like now going, I work with men, so I'm going, ooh, okay, this is a whole new element. Um, Do you mind if I ask you personally where you are dating wise? Are you in a relationship and did you meet through music, so on and so forth?
Yeah, so ironically, yes, I'm in a relationship, and I met this person because of the app. So this person and I worked together at a company, but not like directly with each other. And somebody that worked with both of us said, "Oh, you really need to meet this guy," And at the time, I was just looking for somebody that could help from a technical side.
Hmm.
And so initially, that's what he came on to do. He's a former, uh, actually, like music cognition researcher. So actually, like had studied the effects of music on the brain, plus was a former DJ producer. So it was like the perfect combination in a person. And I needed a CTO. So that's how he came into my life. And then from there, we realized that we, wanted to have a romantic relationship. So yeah, it's kind of cool that that's the case. And so yeah, I mean, we love music, and we have some overlap, not everything, but we still
Hmm.
go to each other's respective, favorite bands, and it's just a huge part of our life.
That's really so perfect. It's like you just don't know what you don't know because you didn't get on your app and start looking for people.
Right.
Um, so that's amazing. So with this with this transition, men who are listening to our show, the transition I mean from working together to dating,
Hmm.
men who listen to the show, I know are going, ask about that. How did it happen? How did you go from working together to all of a sudden, oh, there's something more here? Because a lot of
Hmm.
guys that listen to our show might be the type to end up in the friend zone or
Yeah.
just be coworkers. We see each other and we really like each other at work, and that's it. But they're trying to move it forward. So, what did that
Hmm.
look like? What was that process?
Yeah. So I think, what is like not even specific to, my relationship. I just think it's like it is when you are just authentically yourself, which we both were. And I think had in past relationships not actually been able to be ourselves. And I think me having this passion around music and around building this app, we definitely have that in common, which is great. So I think if you are meeting someone, I think it's just important that you're being who you are, whatever that is, and you are just diving into your passion and open, I guess, to meeting someone. I guess all of those things, and then I think it'll go the way it's supposed to go. But I don't think there's any negative, right? So like if you're on a dating app or you're meeting someone in real life and you're not being who you are, and then you don't find someone, right? It's just like you've just wasted so much of who you are. So at least you should just go be the person that you want to be, do the things that give you joy, that excite you. And it's cliche and we hear this all the time, but it's really true. The person that gravitates towards you doing those things is the person that's a good match for you, because you're out there doing what makes you happy, and you don't have to be someone else, because that it's just that's not a long-term strategy. So probably sounds like oversimplified, but I think that's really true.
Yeah, no, it's definitely true. So from a logistics standpoint, if a guy is being authentically himself and he is around a woman that kind of gravitates toward him a bit, they're working together, there's a nice vibe, but she's not being overly clear with, oh, we should go out or expressing that. What does a guy say to transition from we're working together and I'm being authentically me and we're getting along
Hmm.
to the next level of I might want to take you out or this might be something I'd
Hmm.
like to explore. How do you transition?
I think that, I mean, you would first have to know, is this person single? So is this woman that you're talking to like actually an option? Okay, great. Um, so if you know that, I think women, and definitely weigh in if you feel differently, just like shooting your shot, just like, and again, that's also just being like not overthinking it, being authentically who you are. If you like this person, you see a connection, I think just asking like, hey, would you want to go out sometime? And like specific to like my world, right? Like, hey, like, would you want to go like see a show? Would you want to go, see like a singer at a coffee house, whatever it is. Yeah, just, don't the I think the game, there's so much of this now with dating apps too, like around just the, obsessing about like the texting or obsessing about the chat and like how long and the like, and maybe I'm just of a certain generation as well. I just think shoot your shot. And again, if you're just being authentic, you're being who you are, you asked her, and if she's not interested, okay. And then you move on, but there's no like, you could just get it in your head too much. And then I think that's going to reflect in how you interact with that person. And it's just wasting your own time.
Yeah, the hesitation always gives off a weird vibe. It's like, I
Mm-hmm.
can feel he wants to try to ask, but he's a little afraid. And then the confidence that he had maybe going at all is now gone and it gets
Right.
weird. So it's like shooting your shot with this fluid motion of just going for it.
Yeah.
Lack of hesitation is is so, I think, important. So if you don't mind me getting a little bit more personal, because again, like, so a lot of our listeners being men, they work in like they're STEM, a lot of STEM guys, and
Mm-hmm.
the being myself and all of that doesn't always speak to them. So if
Yeah.
you had to paint a picture of what it was like with you and your current partner in that moment of when you realized we should go out, was
Mm-hmm.
it was it kind of mundane? Was it a little bit like a movie? Did you fall in love? Was it there like a specific look that you gave each other?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what did it look like if I was watching it in a movie?
Yeah. I mean, the person in my life, so you could say, I mean, I don't know if I would label him, a STEM person, but definitely tech,
Hmm.
so, but, um, just, I think we had just really good banter, and we both found we just were open, sort of the same personality style, which I think helps. And where you feel like comfortable and you feel safe, and you're just, sometimes it's like the right person, wrong time also. So I think some of that's out of your control. Like you can't do anything about it. And so, I was in a relationship, right, that like was not meant to be like a long term, relationship for the rest of my life, but I'm still very good friends with him. So I think it's just, being, I guess, sort of right place, right time, being comfortable enough to share who you are. And I mean, I think for us, yeah, there was definitely, once we started, especially I got, to know him more as I was like, speaking with him about like coming on board and what that is involved with. So we had all of these conversations around that, where then like just more and more of his personality came out. And then things just like naturally progressed from there. But I mean, obviously we have so much in common, but it's still work, right? You still have to put in the effort. Even if music compatibility is amazing, and I do think it's a really great foundation for a lot of people, you still have to, do your part in a relationship as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I I, I picture these guys that listen to our show and they're so lovely and they're great. They're great guys who listen to our show. But they hear it happened naturally and they're like, "Brr," you know, I'm trying to be natural. And so I think music is a great way to be natural, is a great way to let these stories flow from your past and show this authentic, like you said, the true you, or the authentic you, without trying to be anything else. And that's how natural happens. And so
A
that goes
hundred
back
percent.
directly to what you kind of started saying at the closer to the beginning of the show.
Yeah, 100%. And if there are like sort of, a lot of tech, a lot of STEM, I mean, listen, there's so many, whether you're, male, female, who you're looking to meet, there's so many people that are in that space today. And it's so cool. And I mean, I don't know. I feel like just nerd out, just be who you are, like to the fullest. Like there are people that want you for exactly what you bring to the table and will like delight in that. So I think sometimes we may criticize like our own hobbies or interests or whatever and think they're like not cool or whatever, or people would judge us, or it's like just take that thought, that narrative out of your mind and like lean into it more.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's that limbo when you're just like not sure if being who you are hasn't gotten you somewhere, you think, oh, I need to change who I am. I disagree. I just think you need to like lean into it more, fully embrace it. And yeah, you may need to get on a dating app. You may need to put yourself out there. It's not going to just magically happen, but like you'll find the right person that you're supposed to be with that way.
Yeah, I always say to my clients, it's like turning up the saturation on your personality rather
Yes,
than kind of living in this monotone space that you've allowed yourself to live in because you think your personality isn't big enough or isn't the right one or isn't what everyone's looking for. It's like, no, 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 no. We're just you, but more. So people can
totally.
see it easier. And so, what are some other ways outside of music that you think are really good avenues to connect authentically on?
Yeah. So, I mean, what you brought up, like comedy, like anything that is something that I think like, elicits emotion. Like
Right.
like, you know what I mean? Like what gets you to feel good? Like when you're at when you're at your best, like what is it? Like what, set the scene. Okay. Like on my perfect day, or like the best times I've had have included these things, right? Okay, perfect. All right. So, like, basically, if you could, like, just do that all the time, you would, right? Okay, great. So then, just like from that, whatever that is, okay, figure out where can I meet other people, or, could what could I do around that might fulfill me, but I might also meet someone else. Like, whatever. There's so many different things that people are into today, that there are now like so many groups for it, right? Like when like these like niche communities. Like I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when I grew up, right? Like there were like the jocks, there were the nerds, there were just sort of like counterculture people, there were preppy people, right? Like there were like very few um groups of people. And so it's so cool now. Like there's a community for like everything and everyone. You just have to find it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a sub genre of everything.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I know you're not talking just specifically about music, but I love lounge singers and I love old school
Oh,
jazz like Billie Holiday and
yeah.
stuff like that. And I followed someone recently on Instagram. I just came across her randomly. I live in New York City and she's in New York and she's a lounge singer and I am single. And I thought, I'm going to go to just hang out at one of
Yes.
her loungy shows because it's so niche. It's so right. Who's thinking of that music today? And it seems like I would probably be on the same wavelength, hopefully, as some of the people there. And so like that's seems like a sub genre, like specifically lounge music from the 1920s. Boom, like,
Totally.
and there's going to be a world for that. And
That's, I
so
mean,
yeah.
yeah, I love that. I love that. I think
Mhm.
100%, like, yeah, like just, yeah, lean into your stuff, go be in that space, because the worst case scenario, right? Like, you have a great time just being in, in that world. You've done something for yourself. And then, like, bonus, if there's somebody who you meet, and again, you can't give up. Like, if you didn't meet somebody the first time, it's like one of those things, like, you got to just be all about it, give it a chance. But I love that.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. It's on my to-do list. And it does take a little, and I, think of the guys that listen to the show. It's like, do you go out by yourself and just kind of hang out and look around and wait? Yeah, you do. Like, I just get ready one night, put some cute outfit on, and go hang out at a jazzy lounge place. So, guys listening to the show, I know there's some micro interest that you have that you're thinking no one's tapped into, but there are people tapped into it.
Oh,
So
1,000%.
are there any tips for using your app specifically? I know, dating apps in general, it's, you want to have the best photos, etc., so on and so forth, but something more specific, music oriented with your app?
Yeah, so I mean, we have photos, of course. So we have, but it's like not endless. Like, we have 3 photos
Oh,
for
3.
you. Yes, just 3.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, and so I mean, I think that, listen, it's like, of course you want to be physically attracted to the person, and so it's not trying to diminish that. It's just trying to say, okay, that's the piece of it. But obviously there's so many other things that, like, make you attractive or attract you to someone else. So that's, sort of how we've set up the app. But there's no, like, right or wrong or game plan for using the app. I think it's people will say, oh, I have this band. I'm just going to pick on them, but
Hmm.
just for an example, but, like, oh my God, like, my guilty pleasure is, like, the Jonas Brothers, whatever.
Okay.
And I am so embarrassed about that. Like, but it's like my whole Spotify is like Jonas Brothers. However, I like all this other music. Should I, like, delete? Should I, like, stop listening to Jonas
Oh,
Brothers and
yeah.
then, like, listen to all of this stuff that I, again, perceive as what I think people think is cool or whatever, right? And I'm always like, you can do that, but, like, why? Like, this is your opportunity. Like, what have you got to lose? Like, just let your freak flag fly. We
Hmm.
all have whatever we would consider our guilty pleasure that makes us us. Just, like, put it out there. Um, and it's a funny, it's like a funny story about like, I don't know. It's just, it's nice when we're not all, like, these homogeneous people that all like the exact same thing. So I don't know. I tell people, just put your music on there, put what you like on there, be natural, start talking to people. It's the best way to do it.
I love that. I with Spotify, I get a little self-conscious because I don't really know how it works, but I tend to listen to the same like 5 songs over and over and over for 2 months. That's all I
Yeah.
listen to. And I'm like, wow, if someone saw this, they would think I was insane, which I could be. But does it show the like amount that a person's listened to a certain something, or
No,
just
no. I
the
mean,
bands?
yeah. So we get that data, which helps sort of the way that we weight the matches we provide to you. However, no. So if you sync your Spotify, it's just going to show, the bands that you've been listening to, and not even it won't even put them in a priority order. It's just going to show the bands and then the songs. And so what's cool is, like, someone could, even before they push play on you, like, listen to the actual music you've been listening to. So that's like another conversation starter, right? And then if you use our profile generator, you can create a playlist. So you could include those, 5 songs that you've been listening to, but you could also include, others that you feel like also I love and that they represent who I am. So you have a few options. You're not, like, limited to just what you've been listening to.
Well, I love that. It's exciting. I can't wait to check it out. And I can't wait to tell the guys that I work with to check it out. So it's Vinely, which again, I think is the coolest name. And and is there eh, any way, if are you open to talking to any any guys or giving advice at all, or are you behind the scenes completely?
I mean, I'm behind the scenes. Like, I'm obviously, have a relationship. So, I mean, for me, I'm like, my sole focus is to make sure that the users are having good experiences and focus on all things like business related to the app. But I'm always open, to helping people connect through music. Like, I mean, I like love I could talk about music forever. It's my favorite topic, and I love to help people connect through music. So yes, happy to help however I can. We have there's a lot of great people on the app too. What's cool about it is like we have honestly like a pretty even pie chart of genres. So it's not like we index really high in one or another. So it's like a good pool of people, and we're live in the US, Canada, and UK as well.
Okay. And is there a specific age range? I just would imagine it would be maybe 40 plus going, oh, I really have this nostalgia for this music. But I'm also thinking limited in that way because I know obviously Gen Z that would be important to them as well. So is it a broad age range or
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, I'd say from about like, you have to be 18 to use our app. So, I mean, it's, 20, 21, all the way up to 50, I would say is like our core. And again, I mean, music, it really is like the number one way that, young people express themselves, especially if you think about like during the pandemic, like the role music played in everybody's life. Like it was such a big deal. And just the proliferation of streaming, the proliferation of music festivals, and like
Mhm.
really good headphones and like record players, kind of all of that. Like the younger generations, I'd say, are very active and interested, as well, because they are also, I mean, it's cool. Like, Gen Z, they're kind of taking your like hippie, like phase, and like embracing that
Mhm.
again. And there's all these great artists, like Chappell Rowan and Billie Eilish and Olivia Rodrigo that are like kind of throwbacks to earlier generations as well. So it's like there's something on the app for everybody. That's my point. So yeah, no specific generation.
Yeah. And this could also reignite somebody's passion for music, going, oh, yeah, you know what? I love music. Why haven't I embraced music more?
Hmm. Hmm.
And find this as a way to kind of reinvigorate yourself.
Hmm.
So I think this is awesome. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Rachel Van Nortwick. You've been wonderful. And if someone did want to reach out to you, do you have Instagram or anything to
Yeah,
plug?
yeah, we're on all the socials, and yeah, we're at Vinally App. We have our website vinyliapp.com if you want to learn more about the app, and yeah, looking forward to hopefully having some of your viewers, listeners jump on the app.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. All right. Well, you guys, thank you so much for listening. Hopefully, this inspired you, if you haven't been listening to music, to get back into it and to bring your soul back out. It's like you connect, it's a soul connection, right?
Totally.
So, our episodes, they were coming out Thursdays. However, we've switched to Tuesdays. So, stay tuned every Tuesday for new episodes and be sure to subscribe. And we will see you guys next week.